So it is a minute after. It looks like we at least have a quorum of folks who have logged on. To welcome everyone again to the OJJDP Second Chance Act Youth Reentry Performance Measure Reporting Updates. My name is Erin Rose Feely. I am a Training and Technical Assistance Specialist providing contractor support to the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention for all things performance measures related, all that fun stuff. I am joined today by some of my teammates who you will be hearing from potentially in the chat or later on during the question and answer session. We are also joined today by some grant managers and OJJDP staff, so a welcome to them. Always happy to have them attend and be able to provide feedback. Before we get started, over a few things just Webex related, make sure everyone is kind of logged on. And you can find that chat pod, which is down kind of like the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. This is where we'll be doing the majority probably of our chatting back and forth. We will have, again, a question and answer. We will be able to take you off mute. If you request that, you can raise your hand or just put something in the chat, but most of our communication will be through the chat box. So let everyone can find the chat box. If you would be so kind, just a test, make sure everyone get an answer out to everyone, make sure it's set to everyone. Post your answer to this question. What is your favorite time of year? Actually, me too. I'm a fall, winter kind of person, I'll admit. Time. Kind of even split here between maybe summer and fall. Thank you so much. Summer in Alaska, that has got to be absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much. So a few quick announcements before we get into the details. Today's session will be partially recorded. And the recording towards the end when we kind of do a big open Q&A. We do plan to post this. It will take a couple of weeks to get that done. Copies of the slides, we will be able to get those out to you as well. Additional copies will always be available through the Performance Measure Help Desk. So if any of you have FY 17 to 19, you're welcome to stay, but just wanted to make sure everyone is aware that talking about today in terms of performance reporting really is very specific to all awards that are FY 20, 21, and forward. There will also be some pieces that I'll talk about today that are also going to be a bit specific to if you have the grant award administrator role. So if I say something and maybe it's not something you can see in Just Grants, it could just be your roles or permissions. So we can always kind of sort that out a little later. Officially again, let me welcome you to the Performance Measure Reporting Updates for Second Chance Act Youth Reentry Grantees. Objectives of our time here today are going to be to cover or maybe revisit why OJJDP kind of changed performance measures in 2021. I understand, many people had older. Oh, this is definitely kind of a big change for you, as well as the reporting process. We're going to take some time to really go into what the current reporting process is, not the measures necessarily. We will kind of cover some tips on how to complete the report, when to complete the report. We do also want to leave a fair amount of time for questions and answers. And we do have resources section to cover. We'll kind of see how that goes, and we'll cover that if we have time. But again, we do want to kind of leave the majority of time for questions and answers. Most of the resources are links to past recorded trainings and other printed resources, and you will get those links with a copy of these slides after the session. Before we get into the actual reporting process, to step back and talk a little bit about kind of how we got here. I mean, there's a lot to know about performance reporting, especially for Second Chance Act grantees, and what's going to be showing up as of July 2022. I want to acknowledge, I think many of you may have had a little bit of a rocky reporting month in January. I do apologize for that. Just Grants has now formally fixed all of the due dates to show a semi-annual reporting timeframe, and that means July and January. Section that we're going to kind of cover a little bit of a short intro about how we got to the current reporting process today, which is that Excel document. And that is a workaround until Just Grants can fully support both grantee and subrecipient reporting. So for those of you with a first-time award in FY21, hopefully this will give you a little bit of a background. For many of you who I believe also had previous Second Chance awards in FY17 to 19, this is a big change in the process as well as the performance measures. It is for you and it is for our team as well. And we really look forward to better understanding how these performance measures are rolling out within your programs, and we really do want to be able to hear your feedback. The synopsis of something that was covered kind of in past webinars, and again, I acknowledge maybe you if you have an FY21 award. So if you had an older OJJDP award, what's going on right now may feel very different from what you did in the PMT with those measures. Kind of a summary of what happened is OJJDP went through this process, which is kind of linked there on the bottom of the screen, and we went through kind of what's working, what's not working, what's maybe a challenge to collect data on. This was a year-long process to improve the performance measures, which are now designed to collect a lot more outcome-based information that OJJDP really needs and wants to know about your program. The performance management team, which is my team, collaboratively worked to produce consistent and shared performance measures and language across many OJJDP programs. Since many of the old measures described activities, we really wanted to focus the measures that were launched in 2021 around outcomes. These new measures really are designed to help capture data that will inform decision making. A lot of this comes out of, federal guidelines, which things like the Performance Reporting Act or 2 CFR 200. Many of you may be familiar with the Code of Federal Regulations. And it really is meant to measure performance and success rather than just compliance with a piece of regulation. That's where the outcomes come into play, a place to really tell your program story. I do acknowledge again that for FY20 and 21 awards, these new performance measures are going to feel like a big change from past performance measures, and move forward, the data that you track and monitor and report is still going to get aggregated together with other grantees to kind of show the success of OJJDP's mission. And mission, I do want to kind of put that up on the screen just as a reminder of what it is, because sometimes I think we get so drawn into the individual reports that we forget kind of where things are going. And this is something that I always like to start with when I'm thinking about a new project. How are they supporting the mission? And hopefully my team is supporting OJJDP's mission success through performance measures and performance measurement. Definition that often does come from the Office of Justice Programs, or OJP, is in part said as the regular collection of data to assess whether the correct processes are being performed and desired results are being achieved. So this is done through measures, as you've seen, that are both qualitative, and that's kind of those narratives that you can write up, as well as the quantitative, that's kind of the more of the number format. The performance measures are really also an excellent way for you to know how your grant is progressing in meeting the goals and objectives that you outlined in your application. You know, really try to use these performance measures as a way to make the reports work for you. And OJJDP also will use all of these performance measures in the same way, rolled up or aggregated together with other SCA grantees to really be able to answer data calls that come from the president or Congress or the public. So, you know, your data and what you report everywhere is used, and really does matter. So the knowledge of your program aligned with the performance measures is really what helps create the reliability in all of those data calls and our data analysis. Into the actual reporting process, I just want to stop and say thank you. We know, performance measures are just one part of overall award management, and we really just want to say thank you, because we do understand that these are reflective of the work that you do every day in the communities that you live in. I want to acknowledge the hard work and the money that you've been spending on data collection systems and processes. We've had some questions coming through the help desk that are very thoughtful, and hopefully we've been providing some good, thorough guidance. We are keeping track of all of the questions so that we have your voice, and we're making sure that it is active within looking at how the performance measures are being rolled out. I do also want to ask for a little bit of grace as we move forward with this new reporting process. It is new for all of us, and I want to ask for your continued open and honest communication. So early and often. With that, let's get into the details here. The current reporting process that is in place for Second Chance Act, and particularly youth reentry, is a bit of a workaround, and it's something that was chosen while we're awaiting Just Grants to launch a kind of subrecipient process. And while we're waiting, we chose to use this Excel sheet to kind of capture some of those key performance measures that are used in the data analysis and the data calls that I just mentioned. This Excel sheet is going to be a temporary solution, and when there is kind of like a final process within Just Grants, we definitely plan additional outreach and trainings and office hours to make sure that we can then kind of manage that change into the new subrecipient reporting. So, as we talked about, OJJDP went through that year-long process to kind of create these new measures, and just want to remind you, we are excited to hear your feedback, whether it's through the Excel or through the definition and questions document. So in this section, we're going to do an overview of the main parts of what goes into creating a performance report as of July 2022. After this section, we'll kind of stop and take some general questions, talk a bit more in detail about the Excel sheet itself, and then we'll open it up for questions. So this is one of these places, as I mentioned, where that screenshot there, and again, I apologize, I know it's a little small, but it's just meant to be a visual reference that is something that the grant award administrator will see in the PR or the performance report in Just Grants. So again, apologies for that small screenshot there. I just wanted to give you that visual of the main pieces, the three main pieces that go into a complete report. So part one is the progress report. We commonly refer to these as the narrative questions. You will see that's number one there. They're often labeled as P and Q, and these may be very familiar to many of you because they may have shown up if you've done a previous performance report. Part two in July of 2022 is going to be a new question set. We'll talk a bit more about what that looks like in a future slide. You will answer just like 2 or 3 questions, and it'll be directly in JustGrants. So parts 1 and 2, I want to call those out because these are the pieces that have to be completed and saved within JustGrants to make that submit button show up at the bottom of the page. Third part, the Excel sheet that I've been talking about so much. Excel sheet, and I know on the screenshot it doesn't say Excel, but the attachments, that paperclip attachments icon, that is where you're going to upload a copy of the Excel document. And third, it's these 3 pieces together that your is going to look at before to make sure that all 3 pieces are there. Please do note that attachments, that number 3, you are able to upload multiple attachments. So while the Excel is required, if you have additional documents that go along with the performance report, upload those as well. Next couple of slides talk about each of these pieces individually. So piece number 1 is the report, aka narrative questions. So as I mentioned previously, I think a few folks may have had a few issues with JustGrants showing an incorrect performance report date. So that's now been corrected. So in theory, you may have, if you had to have that report due date corrected, July may be where you're actually going to be talking about kind of 9 months of information, if applicable. And you can do that within the narrative. So part of what you're going to talk about there is what's been going on in the past 9 months rather than 6. So we understand that there might not be actually 9 months full of actual activity because you may have been going through budget finalization and approval by OCFO. You may have been kind of in a planning phase. That's fine. These narrative questions are kind of a place to kind of document that timeline and go through everything that's been going on. So you can also, if you want to, you can kind of prepare your answers ahead of time in a Word document. I often used to do that when I was a grantee. I do want to note, if you do that, I highly recommend that you make sure that it's plain text so that if you're copying and pasting, you don't end up with any error messages because of formatting being moved from a Word document into the system. So again, as many of you have seen, these narrative questions are a place where you can summarize what's been going on in terms of planning, listing out your deliverables. You can kind of summarize the status of your deliverables. This would be a place too if you're, working on something other than direct service at the moment. Please do have that information available in your narrative questions. Okay, so piece number 2 here is going to be a question set, and it's going to show up for you as OJJDP _ finance reentry. This is the question set where there's going to be kind of a few little pieces. It's going to be an opening page where it's just really an opening. So, welcome to performance reporting. Next page here is those 2 questions that I mentioned. And the sum total of what you're going to be answering is the last reporting period during which the award will have data to report, and was there grant activity? So for most of you, the first question should be no, because this is not your final report. And then was there grant activity? This is going to be the place where you're going to want to say yes, whether you're, looking at months or 9 months worth of information. hopefully at this point, budgets have been approved and awards are active. And it's that point that you're going to want to say yes, that there was grant activity. So that third piece where it says Second Chance Act Reentry subgrantee questions, that is where you're going to find a copy of the Excel sheet, and I will show what that looks like. So this is kind of that third page. And the, again, this is, I know it's a small screenshot, but the reason we did this kind of as a visual reference about where you can locate a copy of the Excel document in JustGrants each reporting month, January and July, for as long as this workaround is in place. Admit it kind of sounds a little odd that we can't just kind of post a document somewhere within the within JustGrants, but setting it up as this question set was really the best way to ensure that the correct version of the Excel document was posted to the correct solicitation names so that you have a copy to download. Number two, you have most of the grant award administrators hopefully should have received by now a copy via email, but we wanted to make sure that there was something in JustGrants so you didn't have to go searching back through email. As you can see, it's kind of down in that bottom left-hand corner, a tiny question mark, and if you click on that, that's where the download will start. I do also want to call out this page because while you can download or find a copy here, after you fill it in, save it to your computer, and then you're going to be uploading to a different place, which is that paperclip that we talked about previously. And back to that, and I'll kind of remind you what the paperclip is. So everyone, grant award administrators should have a copy. And again, this is just visual reference as to where you can find a copy right now. So it has it actually displayed, but we will go into parts of it later on. So this is what I was just talking about, that attachment step where you are going to upload it. So acknowledge there may be a few of you who had some changes within the reporting due date, but I do want to ask that within the Excel document, if you have information to report, make sure that it's only for the past 6 months, that is January to June. This request is to kind of help keep things aligned with the work that's being done within an activity period. So this also definitely helps with our data analysis when we are aggregating or pulling together measure reporting from multiple different Second Chance Act grantees. So remember the question set mark icon that we just had on the previous slide, that equals where you download a copy. The paperclip icon, where you're going to upload. It is not something that you're familiar with. We have resources that we can direct you to because this is specific JustGrants functionality that will kind of be able to separate what those two are. I know I just went over a lot of information, so I just want to take a step back, take a breather here, and let's see if we have any questions in the chat pod so far. All right. So we're going to go into here is going to be specifically around the Excel and some of the nuances that you're going to be seeing once you open it and start trying to put some information in there. And just, again, I want to say, because I know we've been talking about there's a lot of different performance measures. Your data is important, all of it. This Excel document is just a temporary workaround. And all of those performance measures, you know, to get them all into an Excel document, that was kind of a tough call. It can become a little risky and sort of burdensome to ask grantees to have all of those all those measures into an Excel document. So I do fully acknowledge that just choosing a few core measures doesn't feel like enough. Definitely understand that. But these were chosen carefully and thoughtfully, again, to make sure that they are the ones that can really best support currently any sort of data requests that come in from Congress or the public, or particularly when the presidential budget formulation is happening. Please do continue to work on data collection for that larger list of performance measures. If you have specific questions about those measures that are not on the Excel sheet, please do reach out to the performance measure help desk. We can give you guidance via email. We can set up one-on-one support calls, and with you or your team, kind of go over any questions that you have. For those of you who have opened the Excel sheet, one of the things I do want to call out is there are going to be a series of questions, and there's going to be a yellow box that's towards column B. I want to point that out because this is the same Excel sheet is being used by all second chance. That's both youth reentry and children of incarcerated parents. What will change based on your choice in that yellow box may be the question numbers, and those question numbers we put in there to align with the definition and questions documents. Again, hopefully you all should have copies of, but we do have those online as well. So another thing I do want to point out when you're looking at the questions on the Excel sheet is to see number of individuals. So this is going to relate to those who are receiving any sort of direct service. But for the workaround for the Excel sheet, this individuals is going to mean youth, ages 0 to 17. And I want to point that out because on the definition and questions document, there are more age ranges and there's other family members. But now we're just focusing on youth, ages 0 to 17, both new to the program, as well as those who were carried over or were part of the program in a previous reporting period and continue to receive services. On the right-hand side of your screen, again, you're going to see a very small screenshot, but that's just really to give you a visual reference of what I mean by the definition and questions documents. This is where it's going to list all of those 33 performance measures that we just discussed in the questions. And we wanted to point out just a summary of what those key performance measures are that are going to be on the Excel sheet in terms of those who receive services, both those who are considered new to the program as well as carried over. There will be some questions around your detained, status offenses. There's going to be one yes/no question around if the program or practice is evidence-based. So I will also post in the chat right now a link to the performance measure webpage that has links to this question and definitions document, as well as to the narrative questions, just in case you need an additional copy. This one is just, again, to kind of give you a bit of a visual reference around what to do for grantee, that's kind of the main grantee there, reporting, as well as any sub-grantees that you have. I want to kind of point this out because there is an option here if you are the prime grantee and you are providing direct service to be able to kind of report that here on the Excel sheet. I'm going to put here an example of what you could do with entering your organization name, and then really kind of look at using that brief description box to just sort of call out if you're the primary grantee and this is your data, because in the subsequent lines, you will also be sharing this Excel document with any reporting that you have for your subgrantees. You also want to call out, I think we've had 1 or 2 questions into the help desk around what happens if you don't provide direct service, or maybe you're not currently doing that within this reporting period. You know what, that's fine. You can, as a primary grantee, put in some information again in that column B around, what is your name, your federal award number, and then again, for example, you can use that brief description box to say we're in the IRB phase, or we're not, or prime grantee not providing direct service. So no right or wrong to how you're going to list it, but we just kind of want to encourage you to kind of include any information here that will kind of give us an idea of the type of work that you as the primary grantee are doing, and it may show a little bit differently from anything you're reporting for your subgrantees. If any of you were able to attend the performance measure overview webinar that we recently had, one of the things that we talked about were validations, kind of a way for you to check on your data before you submit your performance report. I wanted to kind of pull in a slide here that is specific to your to second chance grantees. So in columns P through Q, what you can do is add together the individuals, we said the youth who are receiving service, add those together because those are considered, as we talked about in that other webinar, your key performance measures. Then you're going to keep that total and going to use it to check or to validate that the numbers that you enter for other columns, for example, columns U through W, 1 or 2, the columns P through Q. Example on the screen, you add that up, it comes to 20 individuals served during the activity period. So this validation is not built into the Excel sheet, but it is something that you can definitely do for yourself, and it's something that our team will be looking at as well. So on the previous slide, if we take our key performance measures, in this example, it's going to add up to 20. We're going to remember that number 20. As we move on to the next set of columns and we look at the other performance measures, we are going to say, okay, how many individuals retained this activity period? And is that total less than or equal to our key performance measures? That little box there on the right-hand side of your screen, it's going to show a correct report because 10 individuals detained is less than those who received services in that activity period. An incorrect report would be 25 because saying that you had more individuals detained actually received services. So if that happens, should be your flag to say, okay, let me go back and individuals served. Do I have the correct number? Maybe something needs to be adjusted. Another tip I want to offer with the Excel document here is that there's a couple of little pop-up instructions that you'll receive. That's kind of there on the left-hand side, and it's going to kind of give you some, ideas about the formatting of the numbers that have to go into that particular cell. This is also going to give you potentially an error message, as you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, in and around the federal award numbers. So there's very specific formatting for FY20 and a very different format for FY21 and forward. A couple of other things that I do want to point out here too in terms of the Excel sheet is that UEI number. That is optional. If you have it, that's great. If not, you don't have to stress about it. And then last is there is a little formatting issue within the Excel document. Don't worry if your UEI number or the subgrant ID is showing up as a amount. We're aware of it. And last is that subgrant ID. That is something that is assigned by the primary grantee. If you choose to assign one, again, not all primary grantees will do that, but that's what the subgrant ID is there for. A lot of information. So let's move into some more questions and answers, and kind of the floor is quickly to 2 o'clock. If you have your questions answered, to get back to your day, our team will stay on here until about 2 o'clock, and then we'll close up this meeting. I think you should have, and you will receive a thank you message, our contact information. Please, again, do continue to keep those lines of communication open. Reach out to us early and often. I will be happy to set up kind of one-on-one calls for whoever's on the phone individually or with your team. We can go over kind of your award and your program specifically if you'd like. And I'll be on the lookout for a thank you note, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, that has a copy of the slides and a link to the various recordings.